Hey there, what's up? My name's Ryan. In this video, we're going to review the board game Photosynthesis. I mean, look at that. It's so beautiful. Now, if you don't know how it works, we're going to start the video out just a short explanation of the rules so you can kind of see how it plays and your review makes more sense. If you already know how it plays, of course, use the chapters below and skip ahead to the review. Alright, so here's the board and we're going to set up here for a two-player game. So first of all, and most importantly, choose your colors. We're going to do blue going against yellow. We're going to set the sun over here in its starting space. The sun stays over here and it has these arrows. The angle of the sun begins this way, meaning the sunlight is passing in this direction. As the game goes along, the sun will move around the game, representing the change of the seasons as the sun focuses more and more in different areas. Now, on top of what you see here, each player actually has their own player board where they're tracking how many points they have to spend each turn and which trees they have. But for the purpose of this video, I'm going to start here just showing the board and showing you several sample turns just taking place on the main board. Initial setup has to be around the outside. So let's say blue starts out here and yellow starts out here. So the sunlight's coming from this direction. So on blue's first turn, the sun hits here and here for a total of 2 points. In the yellow player, the sun hits here and here for also a total of 2 points. Blue's going to take those points and plant a seed and then also save their other point. Yellow's going to do something a little different though. Yellow's going to take this level 1 tree off and place a slightly bigger level 2 tree right here, which costs 2. Now the next turn the sun's going to rotate, and since it's a two-player game, the first player actually rotates as well, so yellow takes the next turn. Now the angle of the sun coming this way, the yellow player gets 1, 2, 3 points, the blue player gets 2 points still. The yellow's going to cast a seed right here and save their other points. This tree can actually throw a seed 2 away because it's a level 2 tree. The blue player is going to replace their seed here with a tree that the sun will rotate. Now again, first player rotated, it's the blue's turn. Blue's going to upgrade this tree to level 2. Yellow now is going to upgrade this seed to level 1, and then this tree to a level 2. Now as the sun moves around, play will continue back and forth, with the player throwing out seeds in different areas, upgrading some of those seeds to trees, and then promoting some of those trees to higher levels. Now something really interesting happens when the sun hits right here. The yellow gets 6 points because they have 3 level 2 trees in the sunlight. But since the sunlight's coming from this direction, this tree, since it's 2, actually casts a shadow onto this tree. So the blue is going to score 1, 2, 3, but again, the sun's coming from this angle. This tree casts a shadow on this tree, so the blue would only score 3 points on their turn. Now, if blue's not careful, the next turn the sun's going to come from this angle, and check this out, it comes from here. This tree is now blocking this tree, so once again it's in the shadow. Now if blue can play this right, by the time the sun comes back over here in a few turns, this tree would then cast a shadow onto this tree. One nice feature of the game is this: seeds cost 1 to place out here. Level 1 trees cost 1 to place on them. Level 2 trees cost 2. And level 3 trees cost 3. Also, if hit by the sunlight, a level 1 tree gets 1 point, level 2 gets 2, level 3 gets 3. And even further, a level 1 tree casts 1 shadow, level 2 casts 2 shadow, level 3 casts 3 shadow. But if a level 3 tree is behind the level 2, the sun can get to it because it's taller. So in this example, this tree does not cast a shadow on this tree, but the 3 does cast a shadow onto that one. So lots of what you're focused on in this game is getting the biggest trees, blocking your opponent from getting the sunlight, getting the most sunlight possible so you can get the most trees out there. If you had a setup like this as blue, you would obviously be dominating a lot in the score. But you actually haven't scored any points yet. The only way to score is to take a level 3 tree and spend the cost to retire that tree. When you retire that tree, you get one of these endgame score tokens depending on what area you are in. This outer area has 1 leaf, the next ring has 2 leaves, the next ring has 3, the next has 4. This is the most valuable, they go down in value from there. So because he retired a tree right here, he would gain 18 points at the end of the game. So really what you're fighting for is not necessarily the most trees or the most points, but retiring the most trees. Now it's interesting, when you retire a big tree, you're no longer scoring big points for it anymore. That tree is now gone. This space is now not scoring you any points. So it's a balance. You can't retire too soon or you won't have enough money. You can't retire too late if your opponent gets more of these endgame score tokens than you. You're probably not going to win. Now the sunlight makes this pretty interesting. So for example, a setup like this is a pretty bad idea for the blue player. When the sunlight is here, this tree will block this tree. When it's here, this tree will block this tree. And you see how this is going to work, this tree will block this tree. So part of the trick is using it to your advantage. So for example, when the sun's here, this blue tree will block that yellow tree. When it's here, it will block that one. When it's here, it can't be blocked because it's tall enough for the sun to shine over, but it will block that one. Of course, a yellow player would also be building taller trees to try to counter this move. Now, for the most part in this video, I'm not going to go over the player board. I just want to give you a quick idea of what it does. Over here is how you track your light token. So if you would have scored 4 light on the main board, you would go 1, 2, 3, 4. You now may spend that light any way you would like to. Trees over here are trees that are ready to go into the game. The level 1 trees cost 1, level 2 costs 2. If there was a 3, it would cost 3. These are trees you have to buy off your player board first. So for example, buying this level 4 tree to make it available to go into the game actually costs you 4. That's not even placing it on the player board, that's just placing it into your available pool of trees. So it's kind of 2 steps of placing a tree. First taking it from your board to your available pool, taking it from your available pool and putting it onto the board. And on the bottom here we just have a few reminders of the cost of doing things. Alright, so that's how it works. Let's start off with a few things that the game does really well. Photosynthesis is an abstract strategy game, basically a pure strategy game where you have 100% information. You're just trying to strategize and beat your opponent, get the most light, grow up the most trees, and retire them to score points. It does it really well. It has a very good mechanism, very unique mechanism. The way they've made this game is very nice. How they said, okay, so 1 point is how you place a level 1 tree. A level 1 tree casts 1 shadow. And also a level 1 tree gets 1 light token, 1 light point for spending from the sun. Level 2 tree takes 2 to build. It has a 2 range for laying seeds. It also has a 2 shadow, and it gets 2 from the sun. And then level 3 is 3 high. It casts a 3 shadow. It gets 3 light from the sun, and also has a range of 3. I like that. They made that very simple. When you try to remember how much to pay for things in the game, you just have, okay, the level 1 is 1. 2 is 2, 3 is 3. You have your board which has all the prices listed, but they just make it very simple and it works. It actually, like, the gameplay is really unique, has a lot of fighting over areas, trying to get in certain zones first. Basically, whenever you play a game like this, an abstract strategy game where it's a pure strategy game is what I mean by that. There's no luck involved, there's no dice rolling, it's just can you outsmart your opponent? It almost always to me boils down to does it work well? And yeah, they actually did a good job designing the mechanism. It's unique, it's different than anything we've ever played before, and it works really well. Another positive is that it looks amazing. I mean, I've never taken this game off the shelf, or I've never set this game up and people go, it's fine. People are like, oh wow, that looks good. And it's not even brand new anymore. It's, 5 or 6 years old. It just looks, they really knocked it out of the park with the art. So the art's great, and the gameplay is really, really solid. Okay, so as far as flaws go, there's really not a huge one. The components are beautiful. The trees they won't hold up forever. Now, I have played this game a fair number of times, and my trees for the most part are still there. There are a few that are pretty loose. The cardboard just slides together that make the trees. There are a few that are kind of getting on the edge of pretty beat up right now. You can't really take them apart every time because that breaks them down pretty quickly. You have to kind of leave them set up in the box, and the box could have been a little bigger to fit them all a little more comfortably. Not a huge deal, but it won't last forever, the cardboard trees being made that way. Okay, so now the things I like. Photosynthesis is kind of odd. I'm going to have several things that are in the I like it and the I don't like it category. They really belong in both. So I'm going to kind of start out with the positive spin on the game. Then I'm going to go right into kind of the things I don't like about the game. So first, let's start out positive. It's a really good, pure strategy game. I mean, it challenges your brain in different ways. You can really, the way the sun moves is so interesting. You can think, oh, I want to build this tree up to level 2 right now. Then you look at it and you go, oh, no. Because you can build your tree up to level 3 by that point, and that would block me. I'd miss out on the sun for 3 straight turns I'd be blocked, so I don't want to go there. So you're really trying to view the board in this very rotating manner with the way the sun goes around the board. It challenges your brain to kind of view what could happen. So before you plant a tree, to ask yourself, I'm planting it and the sun's over here. It's going to be at least 3 turns till the tree's of good size. Where will the sun be at that point? Will that tree have value for me as the sun as it goes around this way? Because if your tree gets to a certain level and you spend money on it, then it's immediately blocked for the next 3 turns. It's a little bit of a waste. So you're trying to really get good value out of all your investment of all the trees, but it's so hard to kind of visualize that. And there are some great moments in this game where I played this game with people, and they go, I'm going to put a tree here, and you go, oh no, I didn't. just that moment of realizing I didn't realize that what would happen if I didn't take that spot. So great things. Also the fact that the trees can cast seeds further away as they get bigger. That leads to some great moments where people can use their trees and then throw a seed in somewhere that maybe you didn't quite expect. Okay, so the other thing I like about the game a lot is it has this unique mechanism of you only score off retiring trees. So you could be dominating someone. You could have a lot of big trees, you're scoring all those points. But unless you have a good system for the end of the game, you kind of count out your moves several turns in advance. So you can retire a tree, make sure another tree gets level 3, retire it. As you do that, you are scoring only when you get to level 3 and then retire. So really your goal of the game is necessarily to have the most level 3 trees. It's not to have the most life tokens, not to be the one that has the most. It's the one to have retired your trees on the earlier side at the most possible time. So if you get to the end of the game and you are blocked, an opponent thinks it's a great move to block you and robs you of 2 light points, you might not be able to retire a tree and you are banking on those points. And the point values are pretty high for retiring. So you might only retire 5 trees the whole game, maybe only 4. So it really comes down to, yes, there's all this stuff we're doing out here, but the real thing we're shooting at is just trying to have the most value out of our retired trees. Okay, so you might be thinking, well, what's your problem with the game? You said it looks beautiful, and it does look beautiful. You said it has great strategy. It does. It kind of has chess-like, pure strategy where you can count out so many moves. You're trying to outsmart your opponent. So what's the problem? The problem is actually both those things present in the same game. It's almost like when you see this game, you open it up, it's trying to be this warm, friendly, welcoming game. Most people who see this game just think, oh, let's build a forest. That looks like fun. It doesn't feel overly competitive. It has a very just nice vibe. It's just forest. I want to grow my second level forest. But they put the mechanics of the game, into a very mean, aggressive, pure strategy game where you're really just trying to outmaneuver your opponents and score the most possible points and block them out from the sun. All the mechanics of this game are mean, which is fine. I love mean games. It's just kind of weird put into such a nice looking box. So here's what I mean. I have taught this game to several people who they say, I want to play that game. And I'm always like, okay, sure. Now I don't try to make it sound negative. But they play it and they realize partway through the game that the people who are really attracted to the cuteness of it, people who really don't like some games because they're ugly or they're dark, they want to play this cute, light, pretty forest game. They realize partway through the game that there's really not a lot about this game that appeals to them in the mechanics. The mechanics are actually very against people who are looking for something different, looking for something cute, looking for something light. The mechanics are really complicated. The way you actually play the game is very deep, head-to-head. It's kind of like chess. It's a reinvented form of chess where it's pure strategy. You're going after your opponents and trying to make a better move to them, score more points, block their stupid trees so they don't get any light. So that's my issue with the game. I really struggle finding the right group for this game. If I had someone who's like, oh yeah, I recognize it's a pure strategy game. Like I'm like, hey, think of this like chess. Then I think people would enjoy it more. They're like, oh, okay, it's one of those games. It's a maneuvering game. But I also don't want to scare people off who are like, oh, that's cute. I'm like, oh, it's like chess. And they're like, oh, never mind. I don't want to play. So I try to give it a negative vibe. But I just know people kind of on their own come around to the fact that, oh, this is just a lot of counting, right? People who want to do well. They want to achieve in the game. They realize like, okay, they're like, well, how'd you know that? It's like, well, because I knew I was going to get 7 light tokens this turn. Next turn, you're going to block that tree, but I have a level 2 over here, which will give me 8 more light tokens. Those 2 together will allow me to retire the tree in the middle at the same time I lay the seed. And it's like, oh, there's just a lot. There's a lot of adding up in your head. There's a lot of figuring. There's a lot of figuring out what you're going to do on the board. So it's not a game mechanically that appeals to a lot of people who are interested in the beauty of the game. Unfortunately, that kind of leads to my recommendation. I don't think it's a great game unless you watch this whole review and you're like, cool, I'm up for a pure strategy game that looks good. If you want a pure strategy game, if you like chess, if you like checkers, Chinese checkers, if you like Santorini, if you like Azul has a little bit of randomness, but it's a little more head-to-head pure strategy. If that stuff really appeals to you and you like that, I'm going to block you, I'm going to be aggressive, but you're like, hey, why can't we do this in a really cute way? Get this game. You're who this game was made for. This game was made for people who want that, I feel like, intense, pure strategy, clash of minds, trying to outmaneuver, outthink the other person. But it doesn't, who says those games have to be ugly and boring? They shouldn't be. This game is for you. I would actually say it's a great game for that. I enjoy that kind of mechanism. My issues with the game all come down to the fact that I struggle finding the right crowd for it. A crowd who is okay with it being so head to head, or a crowd who wants that kind of game. They want, a war game. They want something a little more, not so cute. For lots of people, if you look at this game and you think, oh, it's cute, I want to buy this because it's cute, I would just say look a little bit into the gameplay. Watch how it's played. Again, this video hopefully kind of gives you a good overview of how that works. If you're only buying it because you think, oh, this will be a cute little game to take off the shelf and play, it's not really. I've really tried to sell this game to people, and that way I've tried to take it out and say, hey, let's just play a little fun tree game. And most people partway through the game start catching on like, oh, yeah, there's a lot of counting. There's a lot of math. There's a lot of visually seeing what the sun's going to do when the sun moves 3 spaces. And it just doesn't seem to appeal to a lot of people. So I don't really recommend it that strongly, again, unless you're into those type of games already and you would like one that looked good. Then the game's for you. You should get it. If not, I would do your research first before you jumped into it. Alright, so there are my thoughts on Photosynthesis. Probably the most beautiful game that I have on my shelf. The best looking box that I own on my shelf. But again, not really a strong recommended by people. If you enjoyed the video, hit like down below. Also, if you want to see more reviews or some playthroughs, subscribe to the channel and you'll see more of those when they come out.